I sat down for a morning meeting this week with Miramar, Florida Battalion Chief and Certified Financial Planner Leo Nunez. Chief Nunez is an advocate of the Dave Ramsey approach to financial planning, which he uses to help firefighters and first responders get their financial houses in order. Hope you enjoy it. All right, hey Chief Nunez, welcome to the bullpen. Thanks for meeting me.
Hey Kyle, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, we appreciate having you out here. I know this is a busy time of year for you with tax season coming up, but I'm just excited to get you on here and get some more information out. But before we get into all that, how has like the pandemic affected your guys' agency?
Well, we're actually starting to see an uptick in the last few weeks in actual guys that are starting to show up to work with symptoms and having to be sent home or just calling in. And we're a small department. We're about 147 man department, 5 stations, and so there's not a lot of room for a lot of people being out. So it's kind of stresses the system a little bit from the standpoint of now you got to hold overtime, and now you're just exposing these guys twice as much to doing that. But we're getting by just like everybody else. The bell goes off and you get in the rig and you go do your job. Yeah. So for the most part, we haven't had any serious exposures or any serious cases for our line guys, so that's a positive.
Well, good. Yeah, we're feeling the same effects out here. They're slowly opening things up, and with that, we've also experienced a slight uptick. But yeah, like you said, when the tones go off, we're still going to respond. There's nobody that's going to come rescue the rescuers, and so there's nowhere to look but to ourselves, and we'll just make it happen. So it's all good. Well, cool. You ready to get this thing on?
Let's do it.
All right, well, here comes your first alarm. So, Chief, here in the San Diego Fire Department, a first alarm assignment consists of 4 engines and a truck. But here at the Firehouse, I'll ask you 4 questions, and then you give us one piece of advice. That sound good?
Sounds good.
All right, cool. So, as you well know, when you're first in, you got to give a size up. So, a size up here at the Firehouse is who you are, where you work, and how long you've been doing it.
All right. Well, like you said earlier, my name is Leo Nunez. I'm a battalion chief in the other coast. I'm in Florida, not Miramar, California, but Miramar, Florida. Actually, this month I'll be achieving my 25-year anniversary in the fire service. So I have 2 years in the drop plan over here. So we do have regular defined benefit plans with drop out here. So I got 2 years in there. And, I currently, I'm on shift 24/48 as a battalion chief. I serve as the pension of as a chairman of our pension board. And I also serve as the chair of our healthcare trust. Okay. So those are 2 roles that I have that are kind of outside of, they're related with the fire department, but they're more union type positions. And then, as if that wasn't enough, then, I have my own registered investment advisory practice that I co-founded with another chief of ours about 10 years ago, just because we saw a need to provide conflict-free advice to our brethren, essentially, not that more people don't need it, but we definitely need it. And, one of the things that we found was that a lot of guys were leaving the job after a 25, 30-year career. And, in this profession, for those of us that do have defined benefit plans, that is a truly kind of a luxury in today's, economy and what people have. So a lot of people don't really think about it. They just know I have this mythical unicorn that exists 30 years down the road called a pension, and they don't really plan for it. And when that time comes, what I tell a lot of people is, in the fire department, you have your 2 biggest days are the day you say yes to the job and the day you got to say bye to the job. Those are your 2 biggest days. So those are the 2 days, usually the first one comes with a lot of excitement, and the second one comes with a lot of apprehension and fear, because all you've known for the last 30 years is, doing your job. You do your job, you do it well, it's a career, I don't have to tell you guys over there, what it's like. It's a brotherhood, it's a family. So there's a lot of things going on, not just financially, but emotionally, that guys have to process. And what we found was the tendency is that guys want to start doing the planning when they're 2 months out of
Right.
leaving, not 2 months out of making those preparations. And there's a lot of things that you could be doing to prepare yourself to really help put yourself in a good position. So that's kind of a little bit about me and how the firm came about, and where it stems from.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I think our guys and people listening to this, wherever they are, will really understand that and respect the fact that if we came in contact with you, we would know that automatically we could trust you. We would know that you have a high level of integrity, because I think that as an industry, we have a high, like a BS meter for when somebody's just BSing us, right? And so if we came in for financial advice or financial planning to just some random person out there, that meter would be going off, I think, immediately. But when you're sitting across the table from another firefighter, that I think that just gives a higher level of comfort when we're talking about something that is sensitive, right? Talking about finances is something that is almost like a taboo subject. And the fact that you're sitting across the table from somebody else that you're just going to naturally know, like, and trust is a huge benefit, I think.
Yeah, and I think the trust is a big factor, but also understanding the culture and understanding the inner workings. Because like the defined benefit plan is kind of going out like the dodo bird, right? So it's not like Pete, you show up somewhere and somebody's like, oh well, pension, I don't know much about that, or if you're going to an investment advisor, they may be giving you direction to maybe say, you know what, you don't really want that pension, you want to take a lump sum, and they may be doing you a disservice simply because they don't understand the inner workings of the plan. And a lot of our plans provide great benefits, not just to us, but from a joint survivor perspective, even our spouses and our family, and over the long term, which is probably one of the most improperly used tools, because people don't understand it. Not even our members understand it. And a lot of times, with my experience on the pension board, we've always tried to promote education of the members and try to get them to understand what the benefits are, because when you try to explain to somebody what a joint survivor benefit is, most of them don't even understand their own benefit. So if you just give them a paper and your pension office just sends them a retirement paper and says, well, these are your 4 options, 9 times out of 10, the guys are going to look at it and they're going to say, well, I'm going to take the one with the most amount of money,
right?
Which may be the right choice for them, depending on their situation. But in all likelihood, in a comprehensive assessment of what they're going to need over their retirement years, may not be the best option for them, or some combination with a joint survivor option, or maybe a life benefit option with a life insurance policy. But at least in my experience, what I find is that 9 times out of 10, the amount of insurance you would need to replace that benefit, usually most people are underinsured for it, for the certainty and that benefit's going to provide for them without having to take on any undue risk over the long term.
And so that's where somebody like yourself, with these, it's like another set of eyes looking at their overall picture, would really come into play. A term that I hear a lot surrounding financial advisors or financial planners is the term like fiduciary. What exactly is that term, and how does it relate to the things that we're talking about?
So actually July 1st, a new reg came out, kind of changing things around a little bit, allowing the broker space to come in and actually provide advice, which is something that's new. But essentially, the financial services industry has always been kind of held to what's called a suitability standard, which essentially means that, if you're coming to me as a client and you're sitting in front of me and I have 2 things that I can present to you, and one of them is there's not a big difference, but one of them is going to benefit me more than is going to benefit you as the client, and me as an advisor. Maybe I make a better trail or a better commission on it, but they're both suitable. It's perfectly fine to tell you, hey, this is the one that you want to be in. And not to say that you just want to address, the fiduciary perspective just on price, because, maybe the more expensive one is the fiduciary one to offer you as well. But it lends itself to that. The suitability standard, in my opinion, lends itself to a conflict of interest, which is one of the reasons why when we went back to school, my partner and I, we both went back 18 months, both became CFPs. We had to figure out, how do we want to do this? Do we want to go work for an insurance company? Do we want to go work for a wirehouse? And, we quickly came to the conclusion that, the reason we did all this was because we thought that the industry was strife with conflict of interest, that the people that our people are going to see aren't necessarily looking out for their best interest as the client. They're just looking out for themselves' best interest as a financial advisor. And not to paint all financial advisors that way. You could be work under a broker dealer construct and not be a registered investment advisor and do great things for your clients. But at least in my experience, the tendency is that, you're not necessarily always getting the best advice for you, or you also, the other common thing is that, a lot of the stuff that we do is comprehensive planning. So we actually, pull up the hood and throw in the numbers and do all that stuff. And we charge on a fee basis for that, right? So, somebody down the street will say, well, I do the plan for free. Well, be careful of what you get for free, because that person may be giving you the best free advice they can give you. Because if they're doing it for free, they're getting compensated somewhere else. So as long as that disclosure is there and you as the client understands exactly how the advisor is getting compensated, and if you feel that person is giving you, conflict-free advice, then sure, go on. But to answer your question specifically, a fiduciary simply is putting the client's best interest ahead of their own. Okay. And one of the best ways for a lot of firefighters, and I tell firefighters all the time, one of the best litmus tests, a quick litmus test that you can do is if you're working with an advisor that is a certified financial planner, okay, which has been allowed to use the credentials of the Certified Financial Planning Board of Standards, that individual is holding himself to the fiduciary commitment, right? So in order to use the marks, you have to act as a fiduciary. Okay. So there is no option, right? Okay,
so a quick test would be if at the end of your name, instead of, PM for paramedic, if I'm looking at a financial planner, it would say CFP.
Right. So if it says CFP, that means that it's a credentialed individual, which based on the standards of the board, you are held to you have to hold yourself to a fiduciary standard. So that's a quick litmus test, right? And right now, currently, there's about 87,000 CFPs throughout the United States. Not to say that they're all created equal, sure, but at least that's the first litmus test, that in order for them to hold themselves out with that designation, they have to be acting as a fiduciary.
Okay. No, that makes a lot of sense. And I guess it's no surprise in talking to two firefighters that they would be trying to hold themselves to a higher standard and act in the best interest of other firefighters. If that is the market that you're going after, again, we're going to know if we're being, if we're getting the wool pulled over our eyes because of that BS meter that we have. Can you just talk a little bit more? You mentioned you guys are fee only. Again, I've heard fee only, fee based, or other ways that you guys are getting compensated. So can you talk a little bit about how that works?
Yeah, so fee only means that you're charging directly to the client a fee only. You're not receiving any compensation from, let's say, any products or any commissions or anything, and it's just different terminology. But the easiest thing to if I were to tell any of your guys or anybody listening to this podcast is, just be blunt. How do you get paid? If you're doing this plan for free, how do you feed your family? Yeah, because you don't feed them on free.
Right.
So just kind of help me understand what the compensation structure is. With our clients, we basically provide 3 services. We do financial planning on a retainer type model. We do investment management on a assets under management model. And then, we do taxes during the season. And, for most firefighters and law enforcement officers, teachers, all these kind of public government type employees, we do that on a flat fee basis. So you're coming in to do your tax return, coming in the door, this is the price. This is what we charge. If you got, you're a fireman and you got 6 W-2s or 2 1099s and 3 W-2s, because there ain't one that doesn't have a side hustle, right?
Yeah, exactly.
This is what it is. I'm not gonna do, we're not here to nickel and dime you and do that. Our big premise for starting the firm was kind of like our why. Why are we doing this, right? Most people are doing this to do as a career, to enrich themselves. And for us, it was really more a labor of love of, kind of looking out for our own. And I've always been of the premise that if you do the right thing, good things will follow.
Yeah.
And for me, it was more of having a strategy for the next chapter, which is oftentimes one of the most difficult things that a lot of firefighters experience is that we get so caught up on our current chapter and being a firefighter and we identify with that, so closely that's one of the things that keeps people sometimes from wanting to retire, because they haven't really had those conversations. So for us, it's not just, we don't view planning about just talking about money, right? Money, listen, the money is what it is. Your pension's going to be what it is. Your investments are going to be what they are. At the end of the day, what we really want to get down to is, what are your goals and objectives? What are your dreams? Can we make those come true? And if we can't, what do we have to adjust in order to get you there?
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. With that in mind, how are sort of current events or the current state of the economy impacting people?
Well, for us, I guess you could look at it as, depends how you want to look at it, whether you look at it as a blessing or a curse, because we're the ones that are going out there and having to run all these calls and everybody you're coming in contact with. I mean, I just got off shift this morning, and, the rescue in my house, I mean, I think they ran like 10 COVID calls yesterday. I was just like, so it was like they're in and out of the suits, and you're like, they're kind of, we're a small city. I mean, so again, I think it's more the mental strain than the financial strain per se for our individuals. But, we do have guys that, their wives and their significant others have been affected either through furloughs or a loss of a job. So if you don't have your financial house in order, that's just another added set of stressors. It's now getting added and kind of put on your plate. It's I think it's difficult. I think, like any other fire department, you got a bunch of type A personalities running around that are not going to express that kind of weakness or just kind of show any kinks in their armor. But I'm sure that the stress levels are there. And that's why, for me, I think, one of the most important things is really having a solid financial foundation.
Yeah.
Right. So that when events like this present themselves, because this isn't going to be the last pandemic, and it's not going to be the last, just even from personal experience, we went through like a 3-week period right at the beginning of COVID where, our municipality was basically came out and said, we're going to have to furlough certain employees, but, we don't want to signal anybody out. So we're going to furlough everybody across the board. And we actually had an issue where we had to go out into the public, and on top of all this, go out into the public, into the arena of public opinion. We had a couple of events where we had to be at City Hall with signs and picketing and saying, don't shut down fire trucks. Don't remove first responders at the most crucial time that has to be the case. So, that was a 3-week period there where, guys and gals were like, what the heck? You know, we're being put out here in the front lines, and now on top of that, you're going to tell me you're going to cut my pay by, 20% because we're going to spread it out citywide when there's, people sitting at home. And again, those are all labor relations issues and things that, they all got hashed out. The furloughs didn't happen. We were able to kind of, just the court of public opinion did not really feel that made any sense whatsoever. So,
no, but I think that's important to point out is that we're going to constantly come up against things that we have no control over. We didn't control the fact that the pandemic started. We didn't have any control that they wanted to start furloughing everyone, including first responders. But what we can control is sitting down and coming up with a plan for setting that financial foundation. And that's the whole purpose of the Firehouse, is to get people thinking about these things so that they're not sitting there with 2 months left to go and then trying to come up with a plan, because at that point it's too late. You've already rappelled down
your plan. Your circumstances will dictate your plan at that point.
Absolutely.
So that I think that's one of the things that, and you said something that resonates with me, because one of the, when I sit down with clients, one of the important illustrations that I share with them is basically there's an advisor by the name of Carl Richards, and he uses an illustration that basically has two circles, and they kind of start apart from each other. And this circle over here is what are the things that are important to you, and this circle over here is what are the things that you control. And when you merge those two circles together, there's a little sliver right in the middle, and that's basically the things that you can control that are important to you. And those are the things that I tell clients, listen, this is where you want to spend 100% of your time.
It's your time.
There's nothing that, your state government or Washington's going to do for you to change your life or anything like that. You got to take personal responsibility. And a lot of times, we just don't get to that, because I think one of the biggest issues with personal finance is that everybody's always trying to treat it with the 25% of head knowledge and not the 75% of the psychological and emotional component that comes with money. Right. And that's what people really need assistance with. They need an accountability coach. They need somebody kind of guiding them along the way. They need somebody saying, hey, listen, at some point you said you wanted to accomplish these goals. Are these just pie in the sky goals, or are you serious about these? Because if not, then, in our case, when we have an engagement with a client and we're going on a monthly basis, when we tackle all the head stuff in the first 90 to 120 days, the next 90 to 120 days is all psychological stuff. It's all really about your habits, your thoughts about money, your beliefs and your values. And, what a lot of people don't realize is that each one of us has our own money DNA, right? And that's really as a result of what was our upbringing. Mm-hmm. What did we see when we grew up? How was money talked about? And, we know it's not being taught in the schools. Most people's first bad experience with money is after they've made the mistake, so that's kind of a thing that is really important in kind of helping people understand that, you can't just go to an advisor and say, hey, walk in and say, hey, do me a plan, and walk out and then just think that, a 20-page plan that somebody did for you is just going to work out. If you don't take any actionable steps and it's a constant process, right? Because like you said earlier, life is going to happen. It doesn't matter what your plan is. One of the things that as a independent investment advisor and as a CFP is I can't guarantee anything. I can't guarantee returns. I can't guarantee anything. And I explain that to clients. I'm not an insurance company, but there's one guarantee that I will give you as a client, is that whatever we discuss here today, whatever we put on paper, we're going to be 100% wrong. But we're going to have tremendous ability to adjust to whatever life throws at us, because we're going to know exactly where we are and exactly where we want to go and exactly where we need to be based on the circumstances that are being presented.
Yeah. And I think that's really important too. When you're talking about fiduciary responsibilities with no conflict of interest, I would imagine that somebody that's earning commissions doesn't necessarily care if you're veering off track as long as it's keeping them on their track. Whereas somebody that is fee only, fiduciary responsibility, I view that as somebody that's more on my team, more part of the team. We have common goals. We're all trying to pull in the same direction. So I think that is another way where it's just a no comparison sort of thing when you're looking for somebody to help you be an accountability coach. And the other thing I was thinking an accountability coach becomes really important when we see what we've been seeing in the stock market, where the stock market tanks and you're starting to panic. You're seeing your savings
457,
yeah, you're seeing all that stuff just drop, and it might be really beneficial to have somebody, a coach there, saying, no, it's okay, whatever you do, this is our plan. We're not selling at the bottom of the market. My job here as your accountability coach is to make sure that you don't panic sell when things drop to the bottom. So I just really love that. Just sort of pivoting and moving forward, Chief, or I guess looking back over the course of the last 25 years, is there something you would have done differently? Knowing, sitting here today, knowing what you do, what would you have done differently? Is there anything that sticks out in your mind?
Well, I mean, I don't know if I would have done anything differently as much as I wish I would have had all the experiences that have put me where I am today a lot sooner. Because the one real thing that I preach a lot about to young guys that come on the job and really just, in helping them, not so much with their finances, but just with their overall life, is, you don't have to make the same mistakes I already made. Right. So I already did all the stupid stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes you have to experience that, for yourself, in my situation, my initial exposure to the pension board is really what kind of planted the seed to put me here 23 years later, right? Because my experience with, like I said, we were talking about, before we started, we were talking a little bit about, how did, all this come about? And I said, there was a lieutenant that was my immediate officer at the time. And, after being on the job for about 1.5 years, 2 years, you walk in, you sit around the coffee table, and all these guys are talking about, Fidelity Contra Fund this, and 457 this, and no, this fund, and hey, leave it to the first hour of the Firehouse to get all your financial advice. And you got 12 Firehouse attorneys, eight advisors, so I sat with him one day and I said, listen, man, I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. I just sit around the table and I'm kind of mesmerized by what you guys are talking about. It just, and one of the things he did, he said, well, guess what? I'm on the pension board and I have a spot open on the pension board. So why don't you get on board? And I'm like, well, what do you mean? I'm asking you. And he says, listen, the best way you're going to learn is on the job training. Amen. And I got on there, and it was like, if I thought being on probation was bad, that was even worse. Because now you're sitting in a room with a bunch of people with suits, and you're like, holy crap, what did I get myself into?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think that's probably one of the most influential things that actually happened to me, because it gave me this eye-opening experience to look at everything. But even with that, I still made a ton of mistakes in 2008. I mean, in 2008, I got crushed with the real estate market, and I was over leveraged, and I had to learn for myself, is there a better way to do this? And that's really what led me to go back to school and become a CFP and really learn more about, foundational principles of finance and what are things that are good, right? So, in our economy, good credit or bad credit, there's always somebody that's willing to lend you money.
Sure.
Right. So at the end of the day, debt is kind of like the poison that just doesn't let people gain any traction. One of my biggest pet peeves is, and you like you said at the beginning, you guys are in a tiered system out there. And the fact that there's a drop plan today doesn't mean there's going to be a drop plan 20 years from now, right? God knows if there's going to be a pension 20 years from now, right? Because, it's all going to be based on collective bargaining and your ability to secure those benefits and maintain those benefits. So, I tell guys, your drop plan starts today. Day one, it's a 25-year job with a 25-year drop. That's when your plan starts. And if you're blessed enough to be here for 25 years and you have a deferred retirement option plan available to you, guess what? Then you can really evaluate and see if you want to use it as it was intended. Because when you tell people drop, most of them don't know what it means. And I tell them it means deferred retirement option plan. Yeah. It's an option. It doesn't mean you have to do it. So a lot of times, that gets lost in the message, because everybody, it happens every time we get a new group of guys. You come in, you tell them the whole thing. Hey, this is what you need to do. Be cognizant of this. And 3 weeks later, they roll in with a brand new F-250 with the rims on them, and I'm sitting over there driving my paid off car, and I'm going, where do you see the disconnect here?
It's funny you say that, Chief. We had on the show, our former union president, who also sat on our retirement board, say the exact same thing. It was the exact same thing, that he's driving a 17-year-old car that's paid off. It gets him from point A to point B. He's not attached to his car. His ego is not attached to some vehicle that he drives. The cost of owning that brand new lifted truck, which our guys out here do too, I'm happy to report.
Listen,
it's just crazy. It's just crazy.
I like I tell everybody, it's the same circus, just different clowns.
Yeah, exactly. He said it's just a merry-go-round, and the guys just keep coming. Same thing. So that's awesome. Well, Chief, what would be, just to wrap things up, what would be one final piece of advice? You've already given us a ton, but what would be one final piece of advice for people that are trying to get on the path, either, and it could be the guys that are 2 months out from retirement even, or the guys that are 30 years out? What would be a piece of advice?
I think the most important piece of advice that everybody really should understand and take is the fact that you need to, whatever your situation is, whether you're just starting, middle career, getting close to retirement, it doesn't matter. The main construct of what I'm going to tell you is that everybody needs to do this, because, a lot of times what you see are symptoms of not doing this, right? So, you look at employers and you look at retirement plans, and then, you see that one of the main things that a lot of municipalities and a lot of employers are dealing with is 403 B or 457 plan loans or 401k plan loans. Guys are borrowing against their retirement because they're making poor decisions, right? So, one of the things that, and I'm actually in the process of kind of trying to put this in the form of a class and create kind of like an online class that kind of covers this. But I kind of like to describe it as train your brain and build your moat, right? So, as kids, when we were all growing up, none of our parents would have ever said, hey, you see the stove over there? Go stick your hand on it, right? Under no circumstances, you're inherently taught not to play with fire. Get away from it. It's going to hurt you. Yet, all of us go to the academy, we get trained, and we go into environments where everybody's running out of. And that is as a result of training. So you have to train your brain from a financial perspective, right? And what does that mean? That just simply means that you have to budget. You have to have a spending plan. You have to, in our firm, when we sit with clients, we call it our design your life number. My job as an advisor is not to tell you how to live your life. My job as an advisor is to help you figure out what is it that you're looking to achieve, and are you being true to yourself? And then, because that is going to have a number attached to it. It's going to have a monthly number attached to it, right? It's not going to have some obscure number that you need 30 years from now to retire. It's going to have a monthly number that you need to meet next month, or else you're not going to pay your bills.
Right.
So If that number is 5,000, 6,000, I have guys that roll into my office. It's I can't do it for less than $15,000 a month. And I'm like, I'd just like to hang out one weekend with you.
Yeah,
Just one.
just
just one weekend with you. That's it. That's it. I'm good.
Me too. Yeah.
I'm good. Even if we don't move forward with any kind of engagement here, just want to hang out one weekend with you, right? So, so once you know that number, then really work on your budget. And just from an easy perspective, what I tell people is, listen, whatever your gross pay is, whatever your gross household income is, use a very simple formula. 60% for your living expenses, 20% for your goals, and 20% for taxes. The taxes are non-negotiable. For you guys out in California, that's probably a bigger number. That's probably more like a 30% for taxes number. So now you have to say, well, what am I gonna sacrifice? Am I gonna sacrifice my goals, or am I gonna sacrifice my living? Because at the end of the day, there is no more than 100%. If you're using more than 100%, then you're gonna start to see the symptoms of credit card problems. Once you can gain control of that and de-lever yourself on a personal perspective, and don't allow consumer debt to creep into your finances, the next step would be to basically establish a 3 to 6 month emergency account on whatever that design your life number is. So if we know that your design your life number is $6,000, you need to have $18,000 sitting in a savings account. I know the bank's not paying more than a quarter of a half of 1/10 of 1%, but that money is not intended to make you money. That money is really an insurance policy, right? You have to view it as an insurance policy. And what I tell people is that money essentially is the credit card that doesn't exist, right? Because what I tell people is, if you can go find a credit card that doesn't charge you interest when you use it and pays you when you don't use it, let me know and I'll sign up for it.
Right.
But till then, we need that 3 to 6 month emergency account. Now, for most guys in our line of work, 3 months is probably going to get you by, because our jobs are pretty, stable and secure. But, your spouse may be self-employed, and she may represent 50% of the household income. So then at that point, you really should be looking at 6 months,
right,
rather than 3 months, in case there's an interruption like we just experienced here within the last 3 months. So that's really the starting point. That's the advice that I would give everybody. And I even tell people, listen, if you're putting money in your 457 outside of what's mandatory contributions for you for your pension or whatever, if you don't have those things in place, you shouldn't be investing.
Right.
You're not ready. You're not ready to own a home, and you're not ready to invest.
No, absolutely. We just had one of our guys, a captain on our job, who's a Dave Ramsey, not disciple, but advocate. And he talks about that exact same thing, starting with $1,000. That's for when the air conditioning goes out in the middle of the summer. Out here, it's very hot. Out there, it's very hot. You better have money set aside so you don't have to put it on a credit card, which is going to cost you maybe 16 to 20% interest each month.
If you're lucky.
And building up that emergency fund for 3 to 6 months. And he talked about the exact same thing. So I'm happy to hear that he's on the right track based on the things that I'm hearing from you.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So, at the end of the day, it's work. It's not easy. If it was easy, everybody would be doing it. But it's worth it. And that's the important part, because one of the most important things that people have to recognize is that a lot of times we associate, especially in our profession, we associate retirement with, when we hit a certain eligibility, whether it's 25 years, 20 years, 30 years, whatever the case is. And, what I tell people is retirement is the day that your passive income sources can achieve the expenses that you determine as what you need to live your life. So if you say 5,000 is what I need, the minute that you can generate $5,000 a month without exchanging hours for dollars, you are retired, right? Yeah. Whether you work that's completely irrelevant. You know,
Right.
you could be retired at 30 and work till you're 90.
Right.
But what changes is the mindset.
Mm.
What changes is the construct that, you know, for most people, they go to work for the money, and the reason or purpose is secondary.
Right.
When you're eligible, when you're able to retire, really the only thing that happens is that those two things flip,
They switch.
and really everything you're doing is for purpose, and if there's money involved, it becomes secondary. So I think that's something for people to kind of think of.
No, that's amazing, Chief. And I think that hits home, and that's in perfect alignment with what we talk about here at the Firehouse. Is that the Firehouse it's actually an acronym, Financial Independence, Retire Early, so that you can be financially free. And if you want to go and work, that's up to you. It's just doing something that you love, and it's not in order to pay the bills. So I think that's just perfect, and a great way to just wrap things up. And so I guess with that, Chief, you got knocked down on your first alarm.
Cool.
So if people out there want to know more about you, they want to learn more about you, maybe they want to talk to you more about their personal financial situation, where could they find you?
So, you know, you could visit our website. It's www.everestfa.com. You know, you can always email me. My email is Leo Nunez, LEONUNEZ @everestfa.com. And yeah, if you just want to schedule a time to talk and ask a question or whatever the case is, you know, that's what we're here for. That's why we do what we do. That's why we started the firm. And if we can help, you know, more firefighters than just in Florida, we'd be more than glad to do that, or, you know, help guide you in the right direction to find the right advisor, maybe locally there, and, you know, what to look for. But I think that the most important thing comes back to, you know, being able to have those conversations with your advisor. Don't if you're in a relationship where you're with an advisor, and every time you have to go to a meeting, you kind of feel intimidated, you're with the wrong advisor, right? Because they work for you. You don't work for them. They work for you.
No, that makes sense. I'll make sure to link all those things in the show notes. And I think probably too, it's important to note that with the pandemic the way it is, I'm assuming that the conversation we're having here could be something similar to what you would be able to offer people out here if they called you, right? They don't have to show
Absolutely.
up at the door.
No, we can do I mean, this is kind of, I mean, we were already doing virtual meetings, but it was more of I would say the clients were less receptive to the virtual meeting, right? And I think now, as a result of they've been forced to kind of adopt this kind of virtual lifestyle, they're a little bit more, they're not apprehensive about not knowing how to use it or how to get it. So we can, you know, my calendar is available. If somebody calls or they email me, I can send them a link to my calendar, and they can book the virtual meeting right on there, and we can have a call much like this one.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, Chief, I do really appreciate it. I know the people listening to this are going to appreciate it too. And yeah, I just can't thank you enough for your time.
No, thank you, Kyle, man. Be safe out there, brother.
You too. All right. Thanks again to Chief Nunez for meeting me here in the bullpen. Having one of us sitting across the kitchen table from you with the background and education as a certified financial planner to help you make sound investment decisions is just invaluable. If you'd like to learn more about Chief Nunez and his financial planning firm, you can find them on the website everestfa.com. That's Everest, F is in finance, A is in advisors.com. If you'd like to learn more about us, we're on Facebook at the Firehouse. That's f.i.r.ehouse. On Instagram, the _fire_house. On LinkedIn, the Firehouse Investors, or anywhere you listen to podcasts. If you learned something today and you want to hear more, please like, share, and subscribe. But no matter what you do, take this information, go out there, and get some. Station F.